past few months, I've been taking this little Insta360 Ace Pro 2 out and about with me for both photography and video. I made my initial video a couple of weeks back and the response has been brilliant, and quite a few people found the concept of using this camera for photography very interesting. So I thought I would take it a step further in this follow-up video. I'm going to give you my updated thoughts because I've been on many more adventures with the Ace Pro 2 since. But I wonder, how does this little camera compare to a traditional, similarly priced mirrorless camera? Would you be able to spot the difference in two photographs? What are the compromises and what are the benefits of choosing the Ace Pro 2 over a camera or vice versa? So in one corner, we have the Insta360 Ace Pro 2 with the Explorer cage. And I think the Explorer cage makes all the difference. It gives you a much more tactile experience. It keeps the camera safe, which I shall talk about later. And it makes the whole setup a lot more comfortable for photography. Yes, I have spray painted my cage. I do like to spray paint my cameras and cages. I'm a bit strange. Don't try this at home. It doesn't come in this color. It comes in silver or gunmetal gray. And in the other corner, we have the Lumix GX85 and a selection of micro four thirds lenses that hopefully somewhat match the focal lengths of the Ace Pro 2. Otherwise, the comparison tests are going to be quite obvious. You have a 16 megapixel micro four thirds sensor in the GX85, and in the Ace Pro 2 we have a 1/1.3 inch sensor up to 50 megapixels, which is crazy. Though personally I prefer the 12.5 megapixel option, so you can punch in and change the focal length somewhat in camera. So let's take a look at some side-by-side images with some street photography and architecture. Which is which? So what about some pros and cons? I think a great pro of the Ace Pro 2 in the name is it really is very small indeed, and even smaller if you take it out of the cage, or if you just take the hand grip off, which is what I sometimes do. I tend to carry it around on this little camera strap, which is actually designed for phones, but because the Ace Pro 2 is so light, it works great for this setup as well. And it's great to just sort of pick the camera up, shoot as and when I need it, and then just leave it hanging the rest of the time. For photography in particular, the Ace Pro 2 has some very nice JPEG filters built in. They've just done an update recently where you think they've added 4 more. There's plenty to choose from, and some of them are very nice indeed. Though I must say, for when I'm shooting with this camera, and most cameras to be honest, I tend to just edit the RAW anyway. One con of the Ace Pro 2 and the Explorer grip is while it does go a very long way to emulating a traditional photography experience, you don't have those tactile dials that you might find on a standard camera. Maybe no aperture ring, no clicky dials to change settings quickly, it's all done via the touchscreen. So while the shutter button is very satisfying with a lovely little click, the rest of the experience is very much digital. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just what you prefer and what inspires you. It's perfectly usable that way on the screen. The screen is very bright and nice, but sometimes, you know, having some tactile dials and buttons is just a more pleasing experience overall. One thing I do all the time with the Ace Pro 2 is change the way that the lens distortion looks. So you have different modes like ultra and linear and de-warp. I use linear most of the time because that gives you a more standard look. And then if you are shooting in the 12.5 megapixel mode on photography, you have the option to do 1 times or 2 times. Now, I think the standard super wide is the equivalent to around 12 millimeters in full frame terms, which is super duper wide. And then the punched in one is still very wide, to be fair. It's 24 millimeters to my eye. While I love that you do have versatility and the idea of being able to sort of effectively change the look of your image and your focal length with just 1 tap is wonderful, I still think all the options are really quite wide. I hope on a newer version version of this line of cameras, we could get a little bit more zoom. I think that would go a heck of a long way to making it feel more like a standard camera. Even if it just went up to 35mm or 40mm, maybe in full frame terms, that would be a great walkabout sort of focal length. So definitely points to the Micro Four Thirds camera in this aspect, because we have 1,000,001 lenses to choose from. The options are limitless. You could put a super zoom on, you could put a fisheye on, you could put anything in between and get some really nice, different results that are very high quality. So what I found in my tests, even on quite an overcast day in England, in decent-ish lighting, I found that it was very hard to tell the difference between these two cameras. However, due to science, the larger sensor on the Micro Four Thirds camera did perform a lot better in low light. On the video side of things, I think the low light video in the Ace Pro 2 is very good. There's a mode called Pure Shot, which is designed for low light video. And sometimes you can get it a little bit soft or maybe a little bit artifacty, because I do think it uses like AI or whatever to make this boost in the quality. But I think it's very blooming usable. I mean, when you even think like a couple of years back, the idea of shooting an action camera at night would be laughably bad. So it's come so far. Look at these two sequences in this low light bar that I was in. I was playing pool with my mum because it started raining. So with the GX85, you get a lot more jello in the corners because the stabilization just isn't as good. The stabilization on the Ace Pro 2 is incredible. I think the Pure Shot mode in the Ace Pro 2 does a really good job of leveling the exposure. In the Micro Four Thirds camera, the bright bits are overexposed and the underexposed parts are still quite dark. So surprisingly, even though the Ace Pro 2 has a much smaller sensor, I think it does so much better in low light. Yes, my mother was my camera woman for this video. I'm very proud of her. She did very well. She only chopped my head off once or twice.
Where are you? Oh, you're there. Emily.
Yeah.
I can't get you. It's just...
What have you done? For an everyday sort of fun camera, maybe if you're out with friends or with family or your kids, having the flippy up screen and being able to put a little timer on and get some fun selfies is super easy on the Ace Pro 2. And I really like that because it is an action camera, you can very easily add loads of different accessories as well. Like I love the Mantis Pod. It's really, really handy. You can put it on tripods. You can attach it to any sort of GoPro style mount that you can think of. It's really, really versatile. And recently in Iceland, I was using it on like a neck mount.
Smells like farts.
To get some POV photography shots with the Ace Pro 2. So there's loads of ways that you can use it. And I have to shout out the Explorer kit because my goodness, I was in Spain with this camera and it was very dark at night and I was trying to get an astrophotography time lapse. And it turned out pretty well, to be honest. But I tripped and fell and the camera full on hit the floor. The cage caught it. Everything was fine. There is not a patch of damage on the camera itself and everything was fine. It's stupidly robust in the cage, as you'd expect. Any other camera falling from that height onto these flagstones would have been disintegrated. So, yay for the Explorer cage. One pro, of course, it seems quite obvious, but I'm definitely going to mention it, is because this is an action camera, you can also get some really good water-related photography or video. I jump in the sea with this camera. I've been in waterfalls with this camera. And I got this photo, which was really, really cool. I got my husband to sort of shoot like this water gun at the camera. And I managed to get the image as the water hit the lens. And I think it looks super cool. To do that with a traditional mirrorless camera, you would need like underwater housing and it would be a lot of faff. So it's definitely a pro that the Ace Pro 2 is also waterproof. I imagine family proof would be a good way to describe it as well. Like if you're on a holiday, you could hand this over to a kid and you know that it would be super safe. If they drop it, it's fine, it's in a cage. If they go into the sea or whatever, it's also fine because it's waterproof. Win-win. So while this camera may not be ideal for many niche things like jumping off a boat in Spain, it's a really blooming good everyday carry option and I'm so glad that I have it in my kit once again. And have to say the slow motion and just the video quality in general in the Ace Pro 2 has been really good. I used it a heck of a lot in Iceland, and this is coming from someone who's I know I'm very privileged. I have a shelf full of epic modern cameras, and the camera that I took to vlog with on this trip of a lifetime was the Ace Pro 2. The reason being, right, is I was on a trip with my dad, so I didn't want to take up the whole holiday, you know, setting up microphones and being an influencer in the wild. I wanted a camera that I could just turn on, walk with, and talk to. And because the microphone on the Ace Pro 2 is so blooming good, I didn't even add a microphone to the setup. I just used the built-in microphone. It's epic.
And of course I was just doing this as a bit of an experiment, to be honest. The OM5 Mark II isn't really designed for fast-moving, unpredictable subjects.
And in terms of filming myself, I plopped this little camera down on rocks and got B-roll of myself. It was small enough to put on a barrier so I could just film myself shooting the puffins, for example. It was so handy to get B-roll of myself with this camera and to vlog with it, and it was a very seamless experience and I really enjoyed it. One con with this camera, and it caught me out a few times, is the minimal focus distance from the lens is actually quite a bit further back than I was expecting. Sometimes I tried to get some B-roll by getting the action camera close to the other product, and the actual product itself ended up out of focus and the background ended up in focus. So when you are vlogging to camera, you do need to be mindful of keeping a certain distance away, or you will be ever so slightly out of focus. It's quite annoying. I think a lot of modern action cameras suffer from this for varying reasons. Somebody explained to me why in the comments, because the earlier iterations of action cameras didn't do this. Maybe it's because it's a larger sensor. That probably makes sense. But yeah, the minimum focus distance is something that you need to keep an eye on. I think the GX80/85 is absolutely epic as well in its own way. I like that you have the grip, I like that you have a little tiny EVF, and I love that you have a pop-up flash for the montage. I do think this test was more of a bit of fun, to be honest, rather than anything terribly serious. I do think these two products are very apples to oranges. They do serve very different purposes. I think the Ace Pro 2 is like a jack of all trades. It does a numerous amount of things pretty well, but is not necessarily perfect at any one thing. Whereas the GX80/85 is bloody brilliant for photography and the lovely tactile experience, and you've got an EVF, and it's really good at that, but maybe not so great at being underwater or shooting video. But in terms of just how much creativity you can get out of one little device, the Ace Pro 2 keeps impressing me. I mean, just in this video alone, right? We've got astrophotography, we've got time lapses, I've got a vlogging camera without a gimbal and without a microphone and without any faff. I've jumped into the sea with it. I've got street photography with it. There's loads and loads of ways that you can use this camera. It's super slow-mo even, you know, it's so good. So in terms of like bang for buck and what you can get out of a device, I think it is really good. Is it going to be for everyone? Absolutely not. I know some people would never in a million years pick this up to be a photography camera. However, maybe the solution of this comparison is not which is better or which is worse. It's maybe just saying perhaps both of these devices complement one another. Perhaps you have your photography camera for your tactile, fun photography, and then you have your Ace Pro 2 for your out and about photography, if this is the only camera you have with you photography, and then also video and all the other cool things that I've discussed. So is this camera for everyone? Absolutely not. But for the right person who gets inspired by all these things that I've talked about, I think it could be really cool to add to your kit. As always, let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments, and if you want to learn more about the Ace Pro 2, watch my original video. I take it for a spin around Amsterdam.